Hello everybody, my name is Akshat Sani and these are my group members Isha, Shivani and Ankur. And in this presentation, we are going to explore the leadership style of two major executives in the world today. First one is Indra Nooyi and Bob Iger. And in this presentation, we will examine how their background and their decision-making styles and organizational environments influenced their leadership styles. The following is when we will apply leadership theories, transformational leadership, situational leadership, and the last but not least is adaptive leadership, among others. And we will evaluate to what extent the theories contributes to our understanding and criticism and learning of that particular leader. And we are going to conclude in the last stage, and after that we will suggest some practical recommendations of how each of the leaders can improve their leadership more. And let's begin with Indra Nui. She is born in Chennai. Her story is impressive, starting in India and becoming the head of one of the biggest and beverage corporations in the world. She joined PepsiCo as the help when the industry was being pressured by growing health and sustainability issues. And her leadership is characterized by extended strategic perspective, such as the Performance with Purpose program, which that program main aims to balance business expansion with social objectives. And this dual emphasis on business and purpose is what supports much of her leadership style. Now, next slide, we will discuss about her leadership styles and evidence. Regarding her style, Nui can be characterized by two styles, democratic and collaborative style. She welcomes feedback and empowers her team. She pays attention to empathy and communication. Meanwhile, she had a clear strategic outlook. She recognized that the demand of the consumers toward healthier food altered and realigned PepsiCo. But it was also a tremendous change, accompanied by significant inertia of a legacy. And most of the critics observe that she managed to do a lot, but the magnitude and pace of transformation was limited by the current business model. For example, core snack and soda businesses were not able to change completely. And her next theory is transformational leadership. Using the transformational leadership theory to know it can enlighten us on why she was capable of rallying the organization behind a new strategic direction, motivate employees, and as well as drive the organizations toward innovation. And her case of performance with purpose initiative can be described as a textbook example of transformational leadership in practice. However, we should not ignore the shortcomings of a leadership style. Transformational leadership tends to believe that the followers and the background are easily aligned with a new vision. And PepsiCo is a large, intricate business which puts operational realities, international diversity, and historical business models as constants to the extent to which the transformational ideal can be achieved. And the next slide is about situational leadership. Another useful lens is the situational leadership, and it is possible to observe Nui changing her leadership approach with respect to the context. And when introducing new strategic decision, she was more directive. And in the context of the promotion of a collaborative culture, She was more supportive and empowering. This is also an advantage of a global corporation. And however, the model turns out to be less effective in cases where the external environment is highly unpredictable, or in a situation where teams are spread across the world with different levels of maturity, and where the situational model can contribute to simplifying the issues of leadership differences. Now, next few slides will be discussed by our group member Isha.
Thank you, Akshat. The next slide is about the leader two, Bob Iger. The background of Bob Iger is based on the field of entertainment and media, which is as significant as his corporate position. Leading Disney meant significant portfolio changes, acquisitions, international growth, and digital transformation. The knowledge of that content help us to see why his leadership style had to be both visionary and adaptive. The next slide is about leadership style and evidence. Bob Iger is regarded as one of the most powerful executives in the media industry. His leadership approach and change adaptability is a combination of static vision, creative empowerment, and adaptability. As an illustration, his management of major acquisitions without interfering with the culture is frequently cited. The challenges were also tangible: how to unite various organizations, find the balance between creative freedom and commercial imperatives, how to maintain the monument in the fast changing environment. The next slide is about adaptive leadership. Adaptive leadership is highly applicable to the leadership of Bob Iger. He needed to steer Disney into the transaction streaming plus handle, giant merges and revolutionize culture and operations around the world. This theory assists us in understanding that he did not merely establish a vision, he also steered the organization to the face of change and learning. However, in an international company, that theory is occasionally so abstract that it ignores such aspects like governance, power, or even legacy restriction. In the next slide, we will know about authentic leadership. Authentic leadership is another valuable lens on Bob Iger is provided in authentic leadership. His leadership was not only a characteristic of strategy but vision, but also a characteristic of character. Being authentic, being an upright person, empowering people, being able to correct mistakes, this contributed to the development of trust and good culture. Although in large organizations such as Disney, the notion of authenticity still has to struggle against complexity, commercial interest, and structural pressure. Therefore, the theory is helpful but not enough on its own. The next slide is about recommendation of Noi. In case of Indra Nooyi, even though she has a vision, I would suggest more focus on the speed of execution and digital tools to translate ideas to action. Scaling impact will be achieved through ensuring that the world efforts are recognized and aligned worldwide. Moreover, the establishment of the succession of leaders will enable the continuation of the strategy even after her departure and entrench change with the organization. The next slide will be presented by Shivani.
Thank you, Isha.
And the next slide is recommendations of Bob Iger. The most important pieces of advice that Bob Iger can have are to be more focused on how executions, machinism, or integrations are being enhanced during acquisitions, enhance communication around change to increase stakeholders and increase the digital data aspect of the organization. The industry is dynamically changing, so to maintain continuity, the next generation of leadership needs to be prepared to keep the pace of change. And the next slide is leadership theories that mentioned. This slide is a summary of four important leadership theories we have used: transformational, situational, adaptive, and authentic. It provides us with another perspective of leadership. There are those who focus on vision, others on context and adaptation, others on ethics and relationship. In our discussion of both leaders, we discovered that there was not just a single theory applicable, which underscores the complexity of practical leadership. And the next slide is Noi and her performance with purpose. The performance with purpose innovative is a good example of how Noi integrated a purpose and strategic vision. She did not simply expand the business, but she reinvented it. It also demonstrates the way she attracted employees and stakeholders. The geographical implications was, however, problematic, as well as product lines and old system. We therefore witness the power of her leadership as well as the working reality of his organizations. And the next slide will be present by Ankur.
Hello everyone, my name is Ankur and now I am going to discuss about next slides. The first slide is key acquisitions and culture preservation of Iger. The key acquisitions of Bob Iger are the stuff of business strategies, literature. However, the difference is in the way he approached culture. Instead of taking companies in, he maintained their strengths. This is a transformational and adaptive leadership. The dilemma, though, is that integrating is not always easy. Balancing people systems and brand identity and operations at the same time is a huge challenge to leadership. The next slide is limitation of the theory in the practice. One key step that a critical leadership presentation must undertake is understanding the boundaries of theory, although the transformational, the situational, the adaptive, and the authentic leadership models are helpful. They do not help in portraying all the variables present in the actual organization environments. This is portrayed by our two leaders. The realization of these limitations aid in both recommendation and practice. In next slide, we will discuss about business implications on business practitioners. This slide changes the analysis to practice. What do these examples simply to business and leadership development? The main lessons here are that modern day leadership involves being versatile, contextual, sensitive, and disruptions ready. In the case of organizations, it is essential to invest in the development of leaders and not theorized, but able to apply theory within Western and global environments. In next slide, we will discuss about the practical recommendations. It is in this slide that I will give an overview of our practical recommendations to leader and the wider organizational setting. These measures are practical measures based on our theory inspired analysis. The idea is to make the leadership theory meet practical business implementations, which will allow long-term success instead of victory. In next slide, we will discuss the conclusion of our presentations. To conclude the discussion, that indicates that Nui and Iger represent two different and yet complementary leadership approaches that suit their organizations and sectors. The leadership theories that we have employed assist in the framing and analysis of their styles, but practical leadership is never as clean as theory. It is very important to know the suitability and the constraints of theory to assess leadership at work. And here are some references which we use in our presentations. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankur, and thanks to all our group members, Isha, Shivani, and Ankur. And thank you for listening our presentation.